Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
Here we go. We have a great episode here. Like so useful for so many people, and I'm excited that we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is something that we all experience, and we've all experienced through our lives. If we have kids, we talk about it with kids. If we work with kids, we talk about this with kids. And I think we have action steps like normal, but I think they might be slightly different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
And the opinion of what we're going to talk about, I think, might be a little different too.
Yeah.
But we're coming from experience of not just being parents ourselves, which I think is important because you're raising another human and you're seeing them grow. But also, I mean, we both have taught kids, little kids, 3-year-olds, and then we've seen those 3-year-olds become 30-year-olds and unfortunately with me, 40-year-olds, and have their own kids. So it's not like this is just off of our 2 kids. This is based on decades of basically one long experiment. What do they call this? A case study?
One long case study.
One long case study.
Yeah.
And I would argue that there's not many people that have actually done that.
Yeah.
A case study of somebody from a 3-year-old, then have kids of their own, and then teach those kids that they had. That's
crazy.
That's kind of crazy. So,
a generational case study.
Yeah. So we come from experience. Let's put it that way. That doesn't mean that we know everything, of course, but it does mean that we've seen enough.
Yeah.
That we can make inferences of this is what works.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was talking to our staff last night, I said, when you're teaching somebody stuff, the difference between teaching a kid and an adult is really not that different as far as the method goes. It's just a change of the tone, the voice quality, and stuff like that, right? And what we're talking about today is we're talking about self-esteem, right? And this is one of those things where there's a lot of focus with kids on helping them develop self-esteem. Kids need it, absolutely. So if you're a parent or if you have kids in your life, it's a great podcast to give you ideas on that. But I also run into now and then a few adults who also, I say a few, like a lot of adults who have issues with their self-esteem, who just have that feeling that they're not where they're supposed to be. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, all of those things.
Yep. Yeah, and self-esteem has to come from you. I mean, it's in the word self-esteem. But also you have to be careful when you're teaching kids that you're giving them too high a self-esteem, right?
Right.
I mean, it really needs, unlike love, like you should love somebody unconditionally, right?
Yep.
Unlike love, though, self-esteem needs to be earned, because if you just tell the kid that, hey, listen, you're great, you're awesome, and then they turn into little jerks. And one of the things that my wife and I talked about early on is we do not want to turn our kids into little jerks. We said a different word, but you understand what I mean.
It's a good goal.
Yeah, it's a balance of giving them enough self-esteem, but not too much.
Yeah.
That, hey, they aren't the most important thing in the world. Now, yes, they are to us as parents, but not to everybody else. So don't act that way.
No,
right?
100%.
Don't act like you're the most important thing in the world, because when you go to your, my daughter just started her full-time career, and she did great with the interviews, and I think a lot of it was because we helped her to be confident, but not cocky and not arrogant and not like, you should hire me because I'm me, that type of thing. You should hire me because of these are all my accomplishments. This is what I've done, and that's what we have worked on.
And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, that like we all remember the like, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and by God, people like me.
Right.
And saying that stuff over and over again, kind of like incantations aside, but saying that stuff over and over again does not build self-esteem. Doing hard things, like accomplishing, builds self-esteem. So sometimes there's that extra step where pointing out, actually seeing what you're accomplishing is a big help. Right, because you can tell yourself you're great all you want. You can tell other people you're great all you want, but until you have proven to yourself that you have, whatever that thing is that you're looking for, your brain's gonna know.
Yeah.
right? Your subconscious knows when you're full of it.
Yeah.
So
And I think what you said, and I want to expand on it a little bit. Doing hard things. I think that's kind of we're going to get into our three steps. I mean, we're not even into our three steps
right.
right now, but
Yep.
this is kind of the overarching thing for setting them up. Is you need to do hard things. Your kids need to do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love about the martial arts, and especially what we teach, is it's hard, it's difficult. We're not just giving black belts away. Kids don't make it. Adults don't make it the first, second time. Your daughter experienced that coming through the last time.
Yep.
And think of how she feels now,
mm-hmm.
right? How she feels. I know how she feels
Yep.
making it, because
mm-hmm.
she did hard things,
right?
And not that she wasn't good before, but I think she's even better now, because of the and I don't even want to call it failure, because I don't even think of it as a failure. I think of it as a learning experience that, okay, I need to do this more and that more, and that's how we get better. But doing hard things, having your kids experience difficulty. If you're the snowplow parents, they used to call them different things, but I like that term I heard, a snowplow parent, where you're getting rid of all the obstacles for your kids, you're doing them a huge disservice. So if you're one of those parents listening right now, do the best you can to stop, stop that, because you're not helping them, mm-hmm. right? You're not helping them at all. You're actually hurting them in the long run.
Snowplow. I've never heard that. That's good.
Yeah. I heard it the other day, and I was like, I think it's a little different than a helicopter parent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the snowplow. Of course, if you aren't from the north, you don't really understand what a snowplow parent is.
No, but I do think a helicopter with a snowplow on it would be like
wow, that's
the coolest Arnold Schwarzenegger piece of machinery I've ever seen. But anyway, so let's get into our steps. So for people listening right now, if you ever feel that feeling, right, that low self-esteem feeling, which I know people do, I know they do, even if they don't want to admit it, these steps are for you, right?
Yeah.
So number one, and we've talked about this before, but and I'm predictable when I say it, but you got to start with gratitude, right?
Yes.
You've got to always start the process coming from a place of abundance, coming from a place of, look at all the things I have in my life that I'm grateful for.
Yes. And that is such a huge thing. And that's why it's important that you're taking stock in the evening. We talk about this a lot. We did a podcast on bookend your days. And one of the things is, what am I grateful for at the end of the day? List all the things, and you're still alive, and, you made it through the day, and your kids are healthy, and you have a good relationship, and all of those things. And if we start listing them, and I think it's even good to write them down, because then you have it to look at and to remind yourself about all those things, because it's easy to focus on our problems. Those are the ones that are in our face. And it's easy to be, I think, having a high level of expectations can counter having gratitude. It's almost the opposite sometimes, and I think it's important that you balance it out. I'm sure you struggle with it. I struggle with, okay, I have high expectations and this is what I want, but also have to be grateful for what I have. Yeah. And it's okay sometimes not to achieve and to make people better. It's okay. Well, that they have just a rest day. You know what I mean?
It's that inspirational dissatisfaction, right? That we talk about, where, like if you're an achiever, right? And if you're listening to this, you probably are. You have these goals you want to achieve, and you're constantly chasing, right?
Yeah.
So taking that breather to say, you know what? Like, I may not be there, but wow, look where I am and how cool this is. Right. A lot of times people hear me say 15-year-old me would high five the crap out of me today, right?
Yeah.
Even though I'm not where I want to be, I'm grateful for where I am.
Right.
So that's I think that's a huge step.
For sure. So gratitude, step one. Step two, and you alluded to that slightly with this, is stop comparing to others.
Yes.
Now there's a balance of this. I think when you see others and you're like, man, I want to do that. And even like, if you feel envious, which isn't a good quality, but we all have felt it sometime.
Yep.
We're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or one of the socials, and we're like, man, I wish I had that. I wish it was there. And most of it, we all know that most of it's fake anyways. But we still get caught up in it. Yeah. And stop comparing yourself to others. That doesn't mean that you don't say, well, I want that. So you set those certain things for goals. I mean, that's good. But when you start comparing, then you're like, I'm not as good. I'll never
Yeah.
get there. And all these negative thoughts can come into your head.
Yeah, and I think I think there's two camps for comparison, right? Like
Yeah.
I've spoken to people who, were always comparing themselves, like they were short and they were always comparing themselves to taller people. And
Yeah.
that made them feel low self-esteem. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't, there's nothing you can do about that,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's unfixable.
Right.
Um, so those kind of things, I think you just need to learn to be grateful and
Right.
move on. But then there's the other side of things. There's the oh, look at, that person's more fit than me, that person's got more money than me, that
Mm-hmm.
person's has a more successful business. But a lot of times you're comparing your day one to their day 7,000.
Yes, that's a great
And
point.
I think that, I mean, if somebody walks into the dojo day one as a white belt and they look at black belts and they're like, oh man, I'm not as good as them. Like, of course not. Like, 5 to 40 years of training, like you
Right.
can't match that on day one. So
Right.
that's why I think comparison is dangerous, because you
Yeah.
never, number one, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, but number two,
Yep.
you never know how much work that person has put in,
Right.
to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great that is that's an awesome way to put it. Oftentimes you're comparing, you're on day one, or even if you're on day 10, they're on day 100.
Yeah.
So they're that far ahead of you, but you don't realize, you think they're the same, and maybe they're the same age as you, or maybe they're younger than you, but for whatever reason they're ahead of you. That's fine. So what I think is way more healthier is the Kaizen principle of improving yourself daily. So take where you are and compare yourself. How was I yesterday, or how was I last week? Am I better? And if the answer is no, then you need to get to work. If the answer is yes, then you should feel good about that because you've improved.
Yeah.
That's how you can work on getting rid of that comparison and that negative thought, is focus on you.
Yeah. Is Darren Hardy, is his book The Compound Effect?
Yes, it is.
Great,
Great book.
great,
Yep.
great book. Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Just talking about how those incremental positive changes, and I mean, just like the scale, right? Like you're not going to lose weight every day. Like some days are going to be up, some days are going to be down. But if you look at the gross aggregate, right? Are we improving? Am I improving daily? Am I making those positive shifts? And if you're doing that, then you should be proud of yourself. You should be looking at it saying, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I'm getting better. And if you can say that, way to go. You're doing it.
Yep. Yep.
Doesn't matter where other people are.
Yeah, and the other good one is Atomic Habits. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, my son is reading that right now.
It's a great book.
Yeah, he likes it. I read it. I read it when it first came out, and I think you might have told me about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then I read it. Oh, you disappeared. You're like magic.
I'm back.
You're back. Yeah. So those two books, I'll put those two in the show notes.
Yeah,
So
for
that way,
sure.
if you're interested in those. But so moving on to the last step. This one
Yeah.
I
So
like.
the last up, I mean, this is I think this is one of the biggest um factors in your self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
And this is taking action on things you've been procrastinating,
Right.
or as I like to call it, procrastination.
Nice.
I just made that word up. That's great. Procrastination. But, I mean, we all have those things, right? That we say, I should really do more of this, but I have so many other things to do.
Right.
Everyone says it in their head, right? Like, oh, I know
Yeah.
I should, spend more time with my spouse, but I just, everything's so busy, right? I have too
Right.
much to do.
Right.
Taking action on those things, right, that really move the needle in your life, not the things you have to do,
Right.
but the things that really move the needle for you in your life, and just making small progress
Mm-hmm.
will really make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that's, like you said, that's probably one of the biggest things that'll help, is taking action on the things you need to do. You're procrastinating on,
Yeah.
because that will build your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because this positive self-talk is important. All of those things are important, but really, if you start achieving things, you're going to feel better. Like how we started this podcast, doing hard things.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to get your black belt. I mean, I would love it if that's the case, but doing hard things could be maybe making a phone call. Maybe, you don't like to talk on the phone, or maybe it's, you want to go into a place and you want to ask ask for something, and that's difficult for you. I mean, there's a lot of things, little things that we don't do because of fear
Yeah.
or shyness or whatever. That was one of my big things, is I was always shy growing up. And me doing this is the total opposite of what you would ever believe if you watched me as a kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, for sure.
Me running a class and being in front of 50 people and commanding the group is, again, total opposite. Me doing speeches in front of hundreds of people, same thing. So it's just about pushing yourself and taking step by step. It didn't turn over one day. It was a step by step process, for sure.
And I always say a hard phone call has never gotten easier to make over time.
No, you're right.
Like that graph doesn't go, right. It just doesn't work. It always gets harder. It mounts up, it boils. Right. And
it does.
The same thing goes for the things that fulfill you, right? Like, I don't care if it's a hard phone call or ukulele lessons, right? Like,
ukulele.
If you want to learn the ukulele, you got to make time to do that so that you have more of yourself to give to other people. You'll be more productive. You'll be happier. You'll be more confident. Go for the walks. Do the things, right? And I know it always feels like, well, life gets in the way, but it doesn't, right? It's just in your head. I guarantee you people are filling that time with scrolling social media to avoid things, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Take that half hour on Facebook and learn how to build a paper airplane or something. I don't know.
Something.
whatever's in your thing.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's just taking action on things you need to do. That's that last step. And this can probably be the hardest step, for sure. Especially if you have a habit of procrastinating. This is probably the one thing that you need to work on the most. But break it down. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We've all heard that whole thing. It's the same thing as just chunk it down into little bite-sized pieces. Do a little bit. You need to improve your push-ups. Start by doing one or two. Do one or two every hour, and then all of a sudden you'll be able to do more if you keep that up.
Yeah.
All right, let's review.
100%. All right, let's go through this episode. Number 1, start with gratitude. Always come from that place of abundance. Think about the things you're grateful for, and that'll get you in the right mindset to start this.
Step 2 is stop comparing to others. You certainly can use others for inspiration or inspirational dissatisfaction. You can do that. However, work on comparing to yourself, how you did yesterday, the day before, the last month. That's what you want to start doing.
And then the last one, take action on those things you've been procrastinating. Procrastination. You got to take those things that you've been putting off, whether they're in your business life, in your personal life, or wherever, and start making incremental progress on them. Little steps go to a big place.
Outstanding.
All right. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Share this with a lot of people. Like, people need higher self-esteem right now. Everybody could benefit from this. So please share. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.